Should you file bankruptcy? Maybe, but maybe not. For some people, it may be the right choice, but honestly, for most people, it's not the only one. So in this video, I want to talk about bankruptcy in general, kind of who's a good fit, who probably isn't a good fit. And I also want to introduce y'all to a tool that you can use. It's a free tool that you can use to see if bankruptcy is the right option for you, and then also see other options for your situation. At this point, I have worked with dozens of clients, and everybody has different financial situations. Most of the people that I work with, they do have debt, but of those dozens of clients, only 2 of them have filed bankruptcy. I do think that a couple of more would benefit from bankruptcy, but they did not want to, and I'll talk about that more in just a bit. But for the 2 people who did file bankruptcy, it did make a lot of sense. So again, I'll kind of refer back to these clients as I go through this video. Often when people hear bankruptcy or think about bankruptcy, they see it in a negative light. And now I'm not saying it's necessarily a positive thing or something to be like, oh yeah, bankruptcy, everybody should do it, or I should do that because of whatever reason. In my opinion, it's definitely not something to take lightly, but it is a legal way to reset when you've hit rock bottom financially. And there are 2 main types of personal bankruptcy: Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. With Chapter 7, this basically wipes out most unsecured debts, so credit cards, medical bills, but you do have to qualify based on your income. And then with Chapter 13, it's more like a repayment plan where your debts are reorganized over a few years, so that way you can keep your property. With either option, there are definitely upfront costs associated with them, so this is going to involve attorney fees and filing fees. Chapter 13 often costs more than Chapter 7 because of like the complexity of it, and it takes a bit longer for the whole process. So both of them can definitely provide relief financially, but they do impact your credit, and they're going to affect your credit for years. And in some cases, you may lose assets or have a harder time getting approved for things like mortgages or car loans down the line. So when is bankruptcy the right move, or when is it not the right move? I'm going to start with who may not be a good fit for bankruptcy. And first thing would be that you just don't want to. You are the type of person who does not want to file bankruptcy because it goes against what you believe in or who you are, your character, etc. And now, hear me out. This is not saying that people who do choose to file bankruptcy are bad people or that it has to define anything about them. But, speaking for myself, I am somebody who, I did have a lot of debt, over $82,000 of that. Granted, the bulk of it was student loans, so even if I chose to file bankruptcy, I would still have to deal with that because you can't get rid of student loans in bankruptcy. But if I got myself into a situation where I had heavy amounts of credit card debt, or I had a lot of car debt that I wasn't able to pay for these things and I was falling behind, me as a person, I would not feel comfortable filing bankruptcy because I just would choose to do whatever I needed to in order to get out of that on my own and making all the payments that I took on debt for. So I am a big believer that most people can get out of debt and improve their finances on their own. And this is through budgeting, through tracking, better financial habits, staying consistent, etc. So all of that is one thing. I also don't think it's necessarily the right move if you haven't even tried to improve or get out of your situation. So you haven't tried budgeting, you haven't been consistent with budgeting or tracking, you haven't tried a debt payoff strategy, so you haven't actually implemented the debt snowball or debt avalanche and stuck with it, gave it some time. And sometimes there are people out there who fall into that category, but they still want to file bankruptcy. And unfortunately, I don't love that. Again, as I said, do what you want to do. I don't think it's the right thing. If you're unwilling to try and, put yourself in an uncomfortable situation for some time, unfortunately, I think those people set themselves up for failure, and repeated bankruptcy may occur, or they may file bankruptcy, get through the whole process, and then those poor financial habits still exist, and then they just end up in a tough spot again. But anyway, that's kind of aside the point. That's just me kind of going on a spiel around that one. But continuing with this, in general, it's probably not the right move for you if you have an income coming in and there is room for you to create a plan for paying off your debt, and your debts are manageable with some structure. Now, you may be looking at your debts and think that it's not possible. This is when I think it's important for you to talk to somebody, and not necessarily a bankruptcy attorney, because they are in that field of work. So they're going to be like, oh yeah, pay me, I'll get you out of this situation. Instead, look for somebody who will help you to look at your numbers and see what's actually possible for you. Somebody like me. I'm going to plug myself here, of course, because I am a financial coach. I don't want you to file bankruptcy, and I also don't want you to continue to be in debt and struggling. So set up a call with me. We can look at your numbers and see what's even possible. We can come up with a plan, and if you actually take responsibility for this and take action on this, I'm there to hold you accountable, but you would be doing the work, and you will probably see a big difference in your finances without bankruptcy. So if you are current on your payments and you can get back on track with a realistic budget, then you probably don't need to go as far as bankruptcy. There are other options out there. On the other side, people who may be a good fit for bankruptcy are those who are heavily behind on debt payments. You may even have some debt in collections, and maybe you've even tried budgeting, you've tried tracking, you've tried changing your habits, but you're at a point where like, my income is low, my minimum payments are super high, I have debts and collections, I'm getting phone calls left and right, I have this company threatening to sue me, this company is garnishing my wages. You are probably somebody who may want to consider bankruptcy, because it's going to be pretty tough for you to get out of that situation. And I want to provide some specific examples around this, going back to those two clients that I mentioned. So the first client had a lot of tax debt, and this was something that they were unable to catch up with. Basically, year over year, they kept on adding tax debt. And so in order for them to catch up, it would not work out. Like, there is just no catching up unless they were to significantly increase their income, which isn't always the easiest thing to do. Like, sure, you can take on more side hustles, you could get more clients, or try to get a raise at your job, whatever it may be, not anything really specific to the client. But the way things were for them, and it was tax debt plus credit card debt, so those things together, it did make sense for that person to file bankruptcy. Second client had debt in collections, but also a large debt on a car loan that they no longer even had that car. So the car was repossessed, and they would just be making payments onto this car loan that they're not even driving. They're not driving the car. They don't have it with them. And then, yes, as I said, debt and collections as well. So could that person technically tackle their debt? Yes, they could make more money and heavily focus on paying down the debt, but because the car isn't there, and oftentimes if you don't have a car, you need to buy a different car. So for that situation, and even for this client specifically, I do think that was the best option for them to go down, because then can just start fresh and there aren't any assets that he has to lose because of the situation. This is also a client who really wants to change their situation. I'm actually still working with this client, and they are amazing, doing well in the spreadsheets, tracking everything, asking the right questions. So because of that, I am confident that after this bankruptcy is complete, they will go on to thrive financially and not repeat the mistakes that they made with their finances already. All right, with all of that out of the way, I do want to talk about that tool that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. That would be Ascend, specifically their debt options calculator. And quickly, I want to give you some background on this company. I met a couple of guys from the team when I went to FinCon. We had like a 20-minute conversation. They gave me a demo. They explained everything, how it works. I asked a bunch of questions, including how they are making money and how do they source the attorneys that they're working with, this, that, and the other. And everything that they were saying, I really, really liked, and I like what they are doing. So the first biggest thing is that this is a free tool that you can use. So I have my link in the description box. I would appreciate if you use it, because it is my affiliate link. and it supports me while costing you nothing. And all you do is answer a few questions about yourself. It's probably going to take you about 10 to 15 minutes to complete this, so just keep that in mind. But you plug in your income, your debt amounts, and then a few basic details about yourself, and it will give you a breakdown of your options with a whole bunch of information that should be really helpful in helping you to make a decision on what to do. And these options include debt payoff, debt management, debt consolidation, and yes, even bankruptcy. So even Chapter 7 versus Chapter 13 bankruptcy, it will be that detailed. For each of the options it displays to you, it's going to tell you the estimated total payment, so how much it's going to cost you as a whole if you decide to go down that path, the timeline, how long it's going to take you to pay off your debt, and then the pros and cons of each. So this isn't like a sales page, this isn't a sales pitch, anything like that. It's literally just laying out the different options for you. And if you're like, okay, I really do want to file bankruptcy, they will help you to find an attorney. And these are qualified attorneys, of course. They do their research on their end to find the best ones, and that's how they get paid. They earn a fee from the attorneys. So all in all, this data should help you to see the full picture, and you can compare different options. Now, with that being said, I don't want you to just look at the timeline or just look at the total cost, because keep in mind, going back to what I was talking about, like who should not go down this path are those who have not tried. If you haven't tried a debt payoff strategy, just because you're seeing, all right, if I file bankruptcy, it's going to be gone within a few months and it's going to cost me $3,000, versus if I try to tackle my debt, of course it's going to cost you way more because you're actually paying your debt back. And as I said before, I do think that is the right thing for most people to do, because you took on this debt, even if it was caused by somebody else or some other situation. I am a firm believer that taking responsibility is huge when it comes to debt payoff and finances in general. And if you put in some effort, it's going to be worth it. Like, you are going to pay debt off and you're going to be so proud of yourself. You're going to be accomplished. It's not easy. I know, I've been through it, but by the end of it, you are going to be a different person. And because of that experience, you are going to gain all of these skills and all of this knowledge and all of these different financial habits. So look at all the options that are there for you. Take your time to read through all of the details, and you make the best decision for you based on whatever factor it is that you want to base it on. If you choose to file bankruptcy, no problem. They will help you with finding an attorney, and you can go with that route. You can use their website to do so. Now, to be honest, of all of these options, I'm not a big fan of debt management. I would say debt management can be worse than bankruptcy in some situations. So definitely, if you're like, okay, I want to consolidate my debt, or I want to follow a debt payoff plan and really take this seriously, reach out to me. Let's work together. We will come up with a plan together based off of your goals. The way that I do my coaching, it's very customizable. I want you to still enjoy life. I want you to still prioritize what you want to prioritize, but heavily focus on those financial goals, paying off debt. And I will help you with creating a budget. I will hold you accountable to tracking your spending and tracking your numbers on a monthly basis. Or of course, I have tons of free videos on this channel, so you can work through this on your own and tackle that debt once and for all. So if you're in a place where you don't know what to do, what the best options are for you, or if you are considering filing bankruptcy, take a few minutes, fill out this questionnaire, get your answers, see what the best options are, and then you can compare and make an informed decision. As I said before, that calculator will be linked in my description box. I'll also have it pinned in my comments. I'll also have a few videos linked on debt payoff, debt consolidation, balance transfers, etc. Those will be helpful depending on which one you want to go with. And I'll also have a link so you can check out my coaching packages. If you fill out the questionnaire and you're open to sharing what your results were or what option you decided to go with, I would love to hear it. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.